Everyone listening from wherever you are, you have an opportunity for 2025. Okay.
Right. And it will be announced soon. It will be announced in January with a deadline in March. And then from March, we proceed into site visits and a full application. But March is really the important deadline of note.
This is GrantTalk, hosted by Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch and author of The Queen of Grants.
Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch.com. And I am the author of The Queen of Grants, From Teacher to Grant Writer to CEO. And I am your host today on GrantTalk. With me is Sarah Lyding, and she is the Executive Director of the Music Man Foundation. And we're going to have a great conversation today talking about music and how it impacts education and veterans and many other aspects of our lives. And we're very pleased to spend some time with her today, because the Music Man Foundation focuses on the arts, a very, very dear subject to my heart, because everything in school that children have done that's related to the arts, music, art, performing arts, all of that's what their memories of school and education are built upon. And so they're offering grants, and let's delve deep into what they're offering. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Libby. I'm so delighted to be on GrantTalk this morning.
So tell me about the mission of the Music Man, which is your foundation, correct?
Yes. So the Music Man Foundation is an artist legacy foundation honoring the work of Meredith Willson. So if you know the musical, The Music Man,
yes,
or the song, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas, then you know some of the musical magic of Meredith Willson. And our mission is to amplify work that centers music to create enduring change in honor of Meredith's work and in honor of Meredith's legacy. So really, music is at the center.
Right. And it's at the center of everything for children. Even myself, sometimes I just can't start. I have to write. I'm a writer. Besides doing all these things, I actually started my second book already. And if I can't do it, I put on some music. Yeah. It just gets me going. Peppy music. And Music Man had that peppy music to it, right?
Right. Well, we know, there's research that proves what we all know in our hearts, that music is a force for good. Music is a force for transformation. What's happening in your brain when you turn on that music to work on your book is there's plenty of studies out there that indicate how powerful music can be. We know that it helps promote academic achievement among students. We know that there are cognitive breakthroughs for Alzheimer's patients. We know how impactful it can be for veterans returning from combat in their healing. And so, so we know all the many ways that music can be transformative. And so the grants that the Music Man offers sort of fall into three categories. We make grants to programs that are bridging music, well-being, and learning. We have a grant program for advocacy and work that impacts policy that would affect the arts sector or increase public funding for the arts. And then we make some grants in honor of Meredith Willson's musical legacy.
And when there are cuts needed in education, they always attack the arts. And so I'm so glad that your foundation is there, because that's what everybody says. Okay, what are we going to do now? We don't want to cut this wonderful program. And I know we've had your grants on GrantWatch.com repeatedly, and people have found out about them. So tell us, you give these grants every year, right? They're annual grants?
Correct.
And I believe there's one in September and one in May, and I forget the third one.
Correct. And GrantWatch, the Music Man Foundation, our grant-making strategy has evolved quite a bit over the past 5 years. And about 2 or 3 years ago, when we made a really significant strategy shift to focus on music and systems change, we expanded our work nationally and also entered into this music policy or advocacy work. And posting our grants on GrantWatch has been a terrific way for us to get the word out. We know that organizations find us on GrantWatch, and we know that when they do, they have a keen sense of exactly what it is that the foundation is looking for and how their work might be aligned with what the foundation is interested in.
We have an added bonus. When somebody finds a grant on GrantWatch and they're awarded, they send us an email and we send them this mug.
Oh,
just because, the grant writers of the person in the organization that's writing the grant doesn't really have an extra benefit. And we want to make sure that we recognize their good work. And so they get this mug to put on their desk. So we just go around, help everyone in so many different ways.
Well, I think on GrantWatch that organizations seeking grants can click the button to also seek out grant writing services. So there's that additional benefit for them that I think is fantastic, because some organizations really don't have that capacity.
Right. We have grantwriterteam.com.
Yeah.
And that is where they can just put up their request for a grant writer, and it's like a little ad, and the grant writers contact them. So they have that as well. And today they have AI, so it's helping a lot. Are you finding some grants that are written that you're receiving that sound like the organization didn't really write them?
Sometimes we notice answers to questions that sound quite similar amongst organizations. And so then sometimes I'm suspicious of a little AI enhancement. AI is the reality. It's the world we're living in now. And so, and we want organizations to succeed. So we certainly want them to use the tools that are out there. But really important to us is organizations telling their authentic story and their personal story. Especially, we like to hear from leaders of the organization about why they do the work, why their organizations were founded, why they exist in the world. And so, as much of a supporter as I am of AI, I also really love that authentic voice from the organization's leaders.
What I've heard from some organizations is that they're now doing in-person or Zoom interviews to follow up, so that they're not taking this wonderfully written grant application that was written by AI and giving it to an organization that really doesn't have the capacity to run it.
Yes. Yeah. At the Music Man Foundation, we have a couple of points of intersection with grantees along the way. So with our Meredith Willson Awards, which are general operating support for organizations that are utilizing music to create systems change, with those Meredith Willson Awards, we conduct a site visit with every single organization that advances to the full application. We conduct office hours. We have information sessions. So a lot of opportunities for organizations to reach out to us, ask questions to us, and for us to know more about their work as we enter into the process. For our Strengthening the Sector grants, which are grants that support advocacy and policy type work, we do organizational interviews with every single organization, actually before they submit an application, so that we understand the scope of the proposal, can ensure that there's great alignment with the foundation. Because what's most important to us is that proposals that are coming to us are really queued up for success. We want organizations to be successful. We don't want any pretzeling of an organization to kind of squeeze into what our guidelines might be. And that's why we think GrantWatch is a great tool as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that we're appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So let's just go back for a minute so that we get the timeline straight. There are 3 grants.
Yes.
One is due when?
The first of the Meredith Willson Awards they get announced usually in January, and they have what we call the leadership letter or a letter of inquiry that's due usually in March. And then there's a whole process that follows from that, with some organizations being advanced to a full application, site visits occurring. And so actually those recipients don't get announced until November. And just one clarifying point on the Meredith Willson Awards is that we alternate geographies. So in years like this year, 2024, it focuses on organizations based in Southern California. And then in the odd years, 2025, 2027, it focuses on a national geography. So organizations that have a national scope and reach. And So those deadlines, so it's announced usually in January. The initial deadline is in March. And then our other most well-known grant opportunity, which is the Strengthening the Sector grants. The Meredith Willson Awards are the first grant that we do annually. And as a point of clarification, we offer that grant to Southern California organizations in even years like 2024. And in the odd years, next year, we'll be offering it to organizations that are national in scope, that are serving with the national reach. And that
So everyone listening from wherever you are, you have an opportunity for 2025. Okay.
right. And it will be announced soon. It'll be announced in January with a deadline in March. And then from March, we proceed into site visits and a full application. But March is really the important deadline of note. And on our Strengthening the Sector grants, we actually also announce those in January. So we're open to speaking with organizations all year, conducting those organizational interviews, learning about the scope of work. And that deadline is usually mid-September. So we're just coming up on that Strengthening the Sector deadline. And those applicants to that grant must have a specific service jurisdiction of either Los Angeles County, the state of California with a statewide approach, or the entire or a national approach, so the entire United States. So something that would just be specific to a city in a specific state is not applicable for that one. And then our third grant, which we don't publish because we really work in close partnership with organizations, is what we would call like a Meredith Willson Legacy Grant. And that's for special organizations that are doing work to honor Meredith Willson's musical legacy. So that has what I would call a rolling deadline where organizations can reach out to us and apply at any time.
That's great. Now you've had so many applications coming in and you see the mistakes, the errors, and I'm sure you have great tips for people that are applying for grants. And, your tips are going to be applicable to any grant application. So let's hear them.
Sure. Well, I always offer to an organization that if you think you might be in line with the Foundation's guidelines or think you might be in line with the Music Man Foundation's guidelines, to make that call, send that email, do the initial outreach. Especially at the Music Man Foundation, we aim to be very accessible, very approachable. We want to answer questions and queue up organizations to be successful. So make that call and ask that question. I think that's a great tip for all organizations. But beyond that, of course, foundations have, often have websites where you can read about what the grant programs are. And then also, I think a lot can be learned by looking at past grantees. And at the Music Man Foundation, we try to be specific in who those past recipients are so that other organizations that are interested in applying for a grant can see what those types of projects are, see what those organizations are. But don't ever hesitate to reach out with an informed question by utilizing GrantWatch, by resources from the Foundation's website. Ask a question that aligns your work with the Foundation's interests.
We try to show in our grant detail page the specifics enough so that they can get an idea whether they should go any further and click the link to your site. In my book, I talk about exactly what you just said, how important it is to look at the website, look at the list of past grantees, There's certain things that you can just see right away. If your organization is a small startup and they only fund these very large, humongous nonprofits, it's not for you. But if they're giving to smaller organizations, like if they say they gave to XYZ Foundation, look up XYZ Foundation, see how large it is, see how small it is. Did it just start? Find out if you look like that organization in some way, right? That's how you apply.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And knowing that history is also so incredibly helpful. So yes, so as much as I say, make that call and send that email, do that extra bit of homework to find that alignment and know that history. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you get questions that, the person doesn't know the first thing about what you're trying to accomplish, what your goals are, you'll answer them, I'm sure, politely, but that's not a keeper, right?
Right. There's a lot of grants out there, as you well know, and there are a lot of organizations out there. And so, of course, we're always aiming for some efficiency so that organizations make phone calls where they can gain momentum. Absolutely.
People probably want to know how much money you've been giving out, which I'm sure they could see on the website, but let's just get it into GrantTalk.
Sure, sure. The foundation is giving about $4 million a year away, and we aim to make fewer grants that are larger because we think that that larger support will really help organizations do the transformative work. And we make grants to only about 30 to 35 organizations on an annual basis.
That's a lot. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. And something we're really proud of is those Meredith Willson Awards, which I spoke about. Those are 2-year general operating grants. And we think that that general operating is really key to organizations achieving the systemic change that we're trying to help them achieve.
And that systemic change is to include music and the arts into the core curriculum, right?
Yep, exactly.
Permanent fixture, not to be cut.
Yeah, and that's such a good example, Libby. When organizations ask us, well, what do you mean by systemic change? We mean doing work that shifts underlying circumstances to make things more permanent. And music education in public schools is a perfect example. We admire all organizations doing music instruction in schools, but the organizations that are being thoughtful about their partnership with principals or school districts or municipalities and that are really trying to change things to ensure that the day those budget cuts come, music isn't on the chopping block. You know, we really want to ensure that music's embedded. And so we consider that to be systems change when organizations are finding ways to embed it in a district or a school or a city so that it's not in jeopardy.
When I was teaching way back in the New York City public school system, and we were doing math examples, and there was a sheet, you know, there were a number of examples on a page to complete, and they were thoughtful, and the mind had to be in focus. And my students had difficulty with focusing. I put on classical music. And that's how we worked. And then I'd stop the music when the test was over. And it was like, oh, you know, everybody kind of woke up at that point. But the music really helped the brain to focus. And I see that with children and grandchildren, you know, today, that there are focus issues because we have so many distractions, the phone dings, you know, there's a text, there's a phone call, there's some YouTube or whatever's going on. And if you just have that quiet, peaceful time for your brain, and that's a way to embed music into the curriculum. And at the same point, you know, like, da-da-da, you know, like, what do we call that? And what do we call when it's going this way? And, you know, the tempo and the mode and all of that at the same time as we're doing math. Can you imagine we just put it together?
Yeah. Yes.
I can apply.
Yeah, doing
I
math.
can apply for one of your
Exactly. Yes. No, probably learning math better. I mean, music, children who play music instruments, there are now brain scans that prove that their brains are actually developing in a different parts of their brains are developing differently and increasing in size differently. So the power of music is phenomenal. We also work with organizations that utilize music to work with veterans to help to prevent veteran suicide. And sort of different than the classical music example, it's really phenomenal to hear how these combat veterans who don't necessarily want to speak of what they have gone through, that the songwriting process and the ability to get things down on words, to work with a professional songwriter to construct their story, allows them to share things sometimes with their families that they can't find a way to share it otherwise. And there's just so many fantastic examples of how music can powerfully impact and improve people's lives. And at the Music Man Foundation, that's what we're trying to highlight.
And, you know, if you listen to songs, the words in songs where somebody's written a breakup song, that is their healing process.
Right.
They're writing the breakup song. We're all benefiting from it, but it's them healing. It's not that, oh, let me write a breakup song. That's what's due, you know, today. Right. They're just trying to heal, right? And when they're in love, they want to express themselves. So that's how we get all this. That's how we got poetry years ago, right? Whatever's going on comes out on the paper. So I want you to talk for a minute about the general operating support from one of your grants. We always hear about, are there grants for general operating support? And there's not enough of them. So which one is it?
Yes, so that's our Meredith Willson Award, and that's the one we make a 2-year grant of unrestricted general operating support, and those are for organizations that are utilizing music to do this thoughtful systems change work. And those grantees on a national basis include Creative Vets, which is the organization that works with to help prevent veteran suicide, music education organizations like Save the Music and Music Will, Braver Angels, which is an organization that utilizes music to depolarize political conversation, and the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is utilizing music to serve audiences, to it's embedding music education and arts education in schools across the country, and also to cultivate new composers across the country, specifically Black composers, and just myriad ways that the Kennedy Center is using music to create the systemic change. So those are some examples of the general operating support, or of the organizations that are receiving general operating support from us. What we hope is that operating support, and because it's multiple years of it, we hope that organizations are able to fill in the pieces where the programmatic support stops, because we certainly are proud to see other funders supporting the same kind of programs, but that general operating support, allows for staff needs, capital needs, the air conditioner to get fixed, whatever it might be that organizations need in order to deliver that high quality work.
Sarah, if someone wants to find your organization, and let's say they want to make a contribution to your foundation, how would they find you?
They can find us on the web at musicmanfoundation.org. And grant seekers who are interested in knowing the types of things we support can find the Music Man Foundation on GrantWatch.
That is great. I want to thank you so much. Foundation does. And I want to tell my listeners, my viewers, my subscribers, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Otherwise, we can't bring you more of these. And I know you want to hear from foundations, what they're interested in, what happens to, what happens to your grant after you submit it. There's just so many things that we talk about here on GrantTalk. You don't want to miss a single episode. And this is great. What we've gone over today, we've talked about the goals. We've talked about the interview that sometimes happen afterwards, right? We've talked about how GrantWatch has helped your foundation, and we help so many others, because on GrantWatch, there are more than 60 categories of grants. There are thousands of grants. We archive the grants every day, so everything is fresh. We add new grants every day. We just keep going. We want to bring this to everyone that's a grant seeker, and as well as the grant funders. So thank you so much, Sarah. Keep going.
Libby, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing to help nonprofit professionals. We see it as a great resource, and it was a delight to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Grant Talk, powered by GrantWatch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this GrantWatch channel. Please consider subscribing to GrantWatch.com. And you can find the book, The Queen of Grants, by going to grantwatch.com/book. Thank you again for spending your time with us.